to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on our authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hello. My name is James TENEYCK. I'm the author of The Life and Times of Walter Reuther. This is about the fourth or fifth session that we've had. So some of you maybe have visited one or more of these sessions in the past. Some of you may be new, and I would like to first of all thank Michael Uton for putting on the links on my book page, links to several poems and to the first excerpt from the book that I mentioned in yesterday's broadcast. So those links are available. They've just become available. I haven't had a chance to check them out myself, but for links to my poetry, which is, I mentioned, probably the next focus of my writing activity, and to excerpts from the book to give you a flavor of, the tone and, etc. of the writing. So the first excerpt, the one about Reuther and the 4C Club and his social issues club that sort of defined, the inner conflicts of the young man just turned 20 at the time. Quick question here. We're on now, Jim. Okay, sorry. I don't know if I've started prematurely. Reintroduce myself, Jim TENEYCK, author of The Life of Times of Walter Reuther, An Unfinished Liberal Legacy. Yesterday, we were going through some of the earlier stages in the life of Walter Reuther. His early home environment in Wheeling, West Virginia, his move to Detroit, his how he obtained a dye leader job in the Ford plant, and then his political activity, his organizing activity, part of which got him thrown out of Ford, where he was a well thought of tool and die operator. Once during the Depression, once he left Ford, what he did, what he and his brother Victor did, was take a tour of Europe and eventually leading to a job in Gorky in the Soviet Union, where Ford was helping to construct a plant in the Soviet Union that would make a knockoff of a Model A model that was being discontinued by Ford. He arrived in Europe at the time of the Reichstag fire. He had relatives on his mother's side and one relative that he met on his father's side. This is detailed in the book. And he was living initially in Berlin in an apartment with other German, I'm sure if they're students or workers, but young German men who were socialist or actively opposed to the Nazi takeover in Germany. Soon after the Reichstag fire, Hitler gained full control of the parliament, became the Fuhrer. Hindenburg had died, left Hitler the man in charge. And after that election, then the brown shirts came knocking at their door. His apartment mates, the most politically active of his apartment mates, were able to climb down on a bedsheet ladder to get out the back window before the brown shirts arrived at the apartment. And the two Ruther brothers were told, to find other lodging. They would be well off to find other lodging. And that started a tour of the rest of Europe that we discussed yesterday. And eventually the visas came in to go to Gorky and work in the Gorky Auto Works. And then tracing the return to the United States, his involvement with the labor movement, and his rise within the union, taking us to about 1940. So this was a quick recount of what I was talking about yesterday. That brings us to the chapter, The War Years. The previous chapter is the battle on the overpass. In other words, the labor struggle at Ford. Much of that is about Henry Ford himself. And I will be going back and reviewing some of that when we talk about the civil rights movement in a subsequent chapter. So the role of Ford and the civil rights movement in Detroit were intimately entwined. So we'll go back and discuss some of that a bit later on. I see a question coming up. Expect to be here in your booth again. Well, thank you for that. If I missed some questions because of my eyesight, for those of you that have attended any of these previous sessions have seen me with my trusty magnifying glass to try to to read whatever questions or comments that might appear on the stage. And I try to get them, and I know I'm going to. I know I've missed a number, especially in the earliest sessions. So let's talk about the war years. The chapter, begins. Let's say in 1940. We begin at the time when Ruther is best known to most of America as the other guy in that photo with Frankenstein after the battle on the overpass, where they appear, Frankenstein bloodied with blood splatters all over his shirt, and Ruther, obviously had taken some hits to his face, his eyebrows, and so forth, all puffy. But he was, Frankenstein was, the more well-known, the higher ranking, if you will, labor leader at the time of that episode. In 1940, the final Ford was the final auto company a major auto company to be unionized. And it was the start of World War, 1939. But in 1940, you had the retreat of the British Army, the rescue of the British Army from uh, France, and excuse me, and the Battle of Britain begins. 1940 was the end of Roosevelt's second term. It was traditional not to seek a third term. No one had done that previously. His cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, did not immediately try for a third term. His first term was like 3 years when he ascended to the presidency after the death of McKinley. But he'd been president for 7 years, did not seek re-election then, but did try to run again in 1912. But nobody had ever, tried to obtain a third term. It was the tradition laid down by George Washington that the president took 2 terms and then passed it off to the next his successor. So Roosevelt has to be, quotes, persuaded to take the third term. And there's details in the book about how that evolves. Reuther is somebody who has not really come to public attention yet. The first instance where he comes into public attention is his plan for building 500 planes a day. That was the slogan. All of Reuther's campaigns always had a slogan to them. Well, whether they were actually capable of building as many as 500 planes a day or not. But his plan was to convert the unused equipment in the auto industries, to build a rather standard model plane that would, support the effort in the Battle of Britain and the expected possibilities in the United States. Remember, Reuther had toured Germany and the rest of Europe before going to the Soviet Union at the time when Hitler was coming into power. So he understood, the danger that Hitler posed, and he was in Gorky. He saw that not only were they building the Model A knockoff automobiles, but they were also building some equipment for tanks. So they were preparing for what eventually became the Soviet invasion, the German invasion of the Soviet Union. He was not one that had to be convinced. He was not a proponent of American neutrality, let's say, that was very prominent at the start of the war, as late as the 1940s. So his plan: 500 planes a day, convert the unused capabilities of the automobile industries in some joint effort that each of the different major auto plants would be cooperating on some joint effort to use their unused facilities to build planes. In 1940 was a very good year for the auto companies as far as automobile sales. We had recovered from the Depression, or we were in a stage of recovery from the Depression for the second time, let's say, during this period. And the auto companies were reluctant to convert to full-time war production when the auto sales were going so well. The auto industry was very cyclical for the workers. There was the period when they were converting to a new model year where the skilled tool and die operators were needed, where the equipment was used to construct the dies and so forth that were needed to to build a to build a new model. And then once the new model came into production, that capacity was slack. So some of the skilled people were actually kept on during the remainder portion of the year when the focus was on building and selling cars by going on working on the line. Uh, so there was always this capacity that could be used. One of the goals of Ruther, throughout his experience in the UAW, was to try to smooth out, this workload. So his plan was use the excess capacity that wasn't being used for a large portion of the year to build automobiles, to use that to build military equipment, particularly aircraft. The this this was something that would advantage the country if it happened. It was also something that would have played to the advantage of Ruther. His main competitor, for ascendancy in the in the auto union was Frankenstein, and Frankenstein, was had the responsibility, was given the labor charge of organizing the airplane factories out in California. They ran in a different model from the auto factories, namely, they did not use the mass production techniques that the auto companies used in producing their product. And Ruther thought that the buildup of planes could be speeded up. If aircraft work was being done in Detroit, where he had authority, then it would diminish the role that Frankenstein might play, his chief rival. And the other thing was that this would be a way of trying to smooth out the production schedule from the periods of heavy work to no work, etc., for different portions of the industry itself. So it had merit that there was no real alternative. I mean, one of the things that Ruther mentioned was driving past a Packard factory that was being built to produce airplane parts. And he saw that with the Battle of Britain raging, that this plant would not be ready, and capable of actually doing any aircraft part production for several years. So this was a way of trying to get the needed planes to help the British, and also he knew that that the rise of Hitler would mean that the United States was going to be involved in this war sooner or later. There wasn't a good alternative at the time. The way that the plan was, and Ruther had a lot of friends in the press. One in particular, particularly later, but was Henry Luce, the publisher of Time and Life magazine at the time. So he had friends in the press. He had his campaign slogan, 500 planes a day. So his name came into prominence, from that standpoint. Now, during Roosevelt's, effort to first off, get himself, get a demand, let's say, to run for a third term. So he had to construct this, public appeal for the country to demand Roosevelt run for the third term, which he skillfully did. And then during that run, we go into much more of the detail of of these events in the book. But during that run, he had two major obstacles to confront. The first one was Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy was the ambassador to Britain at the time. He did not think Britain was going to be able to withstand, the pressure from Germany. He was in favor of, the appeasement of Germany and to make some deal where, that would, try to avert, uh, a German invasion of England. He was not happy to be around London during the time of the Blitz, and he was, more than eager to resign his position and return to the United States. And the anticipation was that when he was going to return, he was going to endorse Wilkie for president. Um, so he he comes back, he lands his plane, and I think it was in Washington Airport. And Roosevelt has, a crew there ready to receive him. Welcome home, Joe. Brings him over to a telephone where Roosevelt was waiting and wanting to speak to him. And how are you doing, Joe? Apparently, he also has Lyndon Johnson and I think it was Rayburn in the office at the same time. And while he's trying to flatter Kennedy, with this talk, he's there sort of giving the signal to the other people in the room, that you know, uh, he's kind of, what he's doing that, it's a bit distasteful. But he flatters Kennedy. He invites him to the White House that evening, to welcome him home. He makes sure that there's a plane and people waiting to escort him. So in other words, he's not letting him out of his sight until he gets him into the house, to flatter him, and then, presumably during the after the dinner and the flattery, they get down to the real talk. On the way to the White House, Rose is telling Joe that you were a prominent Catholic politician. You were nominated to be the ambassador to Anglican England, a very prestigious diplomatic position. If you do something rash now, it's going to look bad. It's gonna look bad. So he's getting some pressure from Rose, to not go ahead with endorsing Wilkie. And then in the confrontation with Roosevelt, a couple of different sources have, different versions. One is that Roosevelt was flattering Kennedy and thinking that screen has gone blank. I don't know if my voice has gone blank or not. So flattering that he had a political advancement within the Democratic Party in the future. And the other was that if you do this, betray me, your son, the son at that time that was most likely to be the one to be pushed to become president was Joe, the older brother who died in the war. So your son will never become president of the United States if you pull this. So at the end, Kennedy leaves the White House, leaves the meeting, and the next day endorses Roosevelt. Anticipated endorsement to Wilkie. So that situation. The next situation, that comes up that could put a crimp on his campaign for the third term is John L. Lewis. You know, so I mentioned in the last episode that Lewis probably was the one person that had the same type of charisma that when he entered a room, he dominated the room, much like Roosevelt. So these were two ambitious, maybe for different reasons. I hope I'm not losing the audience when these blankouts occur. So Lewis went on the air and gave this speech that against Roosevelt, and compared Roosevelt. If you follow this, Lewis always spoke in these flattering, over flowered tones. And if you follow your Caesar, into this upcoming battle, your sons and so forth are going to pay for it. And he threatened, and if Roosevelt was reelected to be the president, he would resign from the CIO. And so Ruther was nominated or became the person that had to give the rebuttal to John L. Lewis's speech. So Ruther was the radio voice, that went in to voice his support for Roosevelt and to, say Roosevelt for the country, Lewis for the CIO. Lewis was this strong personality. When Roosevelt was reelected, Lewis did make good his threat to leave to resign from his position as the leader of the CIO, and that went to his one of his lieutenants, Phil Murphy, who was actually the best person available to take on this role. We'll get to that later. So that was, Roosevelt is reelected, and shortly America enters the war after Pearl Harbor. So that America doesn't enter the war until the end of 1941, December 7, 1941. So readiness to enter the war, 1942, etc., was fairly limited. And uh, uh, hopefully people, when these interruptions occur, I'm not sure why. If it's on, I don't know which side of the stage it's happening on, but America was able to. Most of the aircraft carriers were not in Pearl Harbor during the Japanese attack. It was a loss of battleships, etc. But America was wounded to fight the war in the Pacific, and it was really unprepared to fight the war in Europe. The first American engagement in Europe would have been in North Africa during the time when the British had been fighting there for a number of years, and we're in the process of blunting the Panzer attacks under Rommel. It's 1942. America's involvement in the war in Europe is fairly limited. During that time, the Germans invade the Soviet Union and get as far as the outskirts of Moscow. They're able to isolate Leningrad for much of the rest of the war, and they were attacking Stalingrad. So during 42, the winter of 42, and then after the winter of 42, in 43, the first major German defeat, on the ground war. They had suffered a defeat in the Battle of Britain as well. So that the Brits were able to hold off, the Germans, hold off any possible German invasion with the Battle of Britain, and the German assault on the Soviet Union stalled at Stalingrad. And the rest of 1943, you had the Battle of Kursk, which was the largest battle of the war, and the Russians knew that they had intelligence that was passed to them of the plans for this battle. They had a backup lines 100 miles deep, so the initial German assault was blunted and then, turned back. Both sides having heavy losses, but that was the end. After that, the Germans were retreating on the Eastern Front for the rest of the war, and the Allied bombing of Germany picked up until the ground assault, etc. In Japan, you had the Battle of Midway in 1943, and that was the turning point of the war in the Pacific. So there's not a lot about the war effort itself. There's a lot of other places and a lot of other sources where you find out about how the battle was waged, etc. Um, Most of the chapter is about the battle within the Union between, at this point, after the settlement at Ford, Homer Martin was out as the president of the Union, and the battle became between the people loyal to George Addis and the Secretary Treasurer, and he was. Um, he was aligned with Frankenstein, or Frankenstein was aligned with him. And the Ruthers formed another, point within the conflict. And then there was the guy that was the president, Thomas, who was more inclined toward Addis and Frankenstein than toward Ruther, but was a more neutral person put in there initially by John L. Lewis. So that was the dynamic within the Union. There were the Union battles were fairly fierce. The Ruther forces and the Ruther forces now with the exit of Martin, he picked up a lot of the more conservative, with Martin. So he had to make sure to accommodate, this new base of support, who was much more conservative than Ruther himself. There were battles within the Union at the various conventions during the war. The Ruther side had the little jingle, I don't know, Thomas Addis and Frankenstein get their orders from Joe Stalin, which wasn't true, but Addis was not a communist, but he was supported by the communists within the Union at the time, and they had the alternative. I'm not sure exactly the jingle when all of this is said and done or whatever, we'll still have Thomas Addis and Frankenstein. And some of these battles, some of these Union conventions could be pretty rowdy. So that's described during the war. The wage and price freezes that affected the domestic consumption and the labor during this period of time. That's part of the chapter on the war years. The planning for the recovery after the war, which began really in earnest in 1944, even before the invasion of Normandy. It was becoming clearer that the Allies were going to prevail on both fronts, although the war might take longer. But it was already starting to return to some elements of peacetime production, that the need for the war material, for new war material, etc., was becoming less pronounced. So you have the planning for the return, how the industries were going to be um, uh, handled during this return, because there was the dynamics, let's say, between the various sectors of the economy that existed before the war, and this got disturbed during the wartime production and so forth, and how was going to return. where the people that were more advantaged during the war years were not going to be able to disadvantage more the other industries, the other manufacturers and so forth that existed before the war. So that was a main topic during this period. So the war ends. It ends. That there's this new structure on the banks of the Potomac, namely the Pentagon, and so there's a new dynamic that's in play after the war than that was not there during the war. Okay, so that's that was basically the contents of that particular chapter. Now, above you have on an upcoming book. Okay, well, I'll get into that. Yes, as you can see, that I'm fairly limited visually. So to do something like a book of this nature, I would not be able to do at all. I would not be able to do the kind of research, to do a similar book. I don't have a similar book in mind. Uh, uh, but what I'm the only thing I'm able to really write now, because I'm not able to do the kind of research that would need to be done to do some kind of a historical rendering. So the only kind of writing that I do now is poetry, and I do have a collection of poems that I would like to put out somehow, even possibly give them away, because I don't want to just spend a lot of money, for on a vanity project to see my poems in print. If I'm not going to at least recoup, the cost of doing that. So, as I said at the beginning, in the yeah. In one of the links at the bottom of my book page, there are links to some samples of poems, as well as a sample to the first excerpt from the book. I'm going to put additional excerpts up there starting later tonight, and also a couple other additional poems. So I'll be adding to the collection of poetry. That people can get a sense of what uh, how I write as a writer, the kind of the poetry, whether they like it or not, and that would be my any future writing plans. Uh, so now World War II has ended, yay, and we begin the post-war period. So the post-war chapters, there are three post-war chapters. The first one I titled The Treaty of Detroit, and that's the one I want to talk about today. Then I have a chapter on the Civil Rights Movement, the March on Washington movement that started with A. Philip Randolph, the labor leader of the Pullman Workers Union, and the one black leader in the AFL, and so the, the initial March on Washington movement that was averted by an executive order of Roosevelt, and then the subsequent actual March on Washington that Randolph revived in the 60s and ended with the March on Washington and the address of King and others on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963. So there's that chapter that let's say begins really during the wartime years and extends through the subsequent period into the 60s and beyond, of course. And then there's the Cold War. So there's a chapter on the Cold War that I'll talk about probably in the next session. So also during this same time, I have the Treaty of Detroit. The Treaty of Detroit really refers to one labor agreement in 1949, I believe it was signed. But I use it to include the subsequent labor agreements, that really define the terms of this treaty, flushed it out, what it meant to the rest of the industry. That this became a model for what industrial unionization was going to be able to produce. And I also begin it back at the beginning before the Treaty of Detroit. So immediately after the war, price and wage and price controls were still in effect, or were about to be removed. Ruther brought his he was the head at this point. He was the head of the General Motors division of the UAW. So he brought the General Motors workers out on strike, arguing for a wage increase of 34 cents per hour, which was a big, typically these wage agreements went up in units of dimes, nickels and dimes, rather than 34 cents. And he had the slogan, show us the books. He claimed that General Motors could afford to pay their workers an additional 34 cents an hour without having to raise prices on their automobiles. They had done a lot of research, to back up this claim, and he demanded that if General Motors could show otherwise, then he would settle for a lower figure, that a price hike that would benefit the workers, but would not, raise the price of automobiles for the average consumer. As I said before, he had backers, newspaper backers, that were favorable to him. His main source of support, in the press was Henry Luce. I think Luce made him the man of the year, not necessarily the man of the year, but put his face on the cover of Time magazine. And he had built up a lot of additional support, throughout, the community, throughout, the rest of the nation. There were a lot of prominent individuals that were supporting this strike effort. So he went out, according to Thomas, he went out 2 months too early, 3 months too early. And he was the first person, or the first union on the scene striking in this period. Unfortunately for him, well, it seemed like what would be a good news, but was unfortunate for the General Motors strike, was that soon after, a month or so later, other unions, in particular the steelworkers, joined the strike. So what that meant, it broadened the strike, and he was not the only one that was trying to negotiate, the terms, particularly the monetary terms of what the agreement should to be. And as it turns out, the steelworkers settled for a much smaller raise, like 19 cents, I believe. So that became the standard. Once the steelworkers settled for the lower rate, that was the standard, and everybody else was settling for that rate, and it left Ruther no choice but to have to, settle the strike, try to get something in addition, maybe a penny more, which he didn't get, or some other concession which he didn't get, and so the strike of 1946 was settled on the terms of the steelworkers. During this time, right after the strike was not only waged to advantage the auto workers, but was also waged to benefit Reuther. He declared his candidacy for the president of the UAW union, and yeah. So at first, it looked like he was running against the incumbent Thomas. You know, uh, the book is portrays Thomas uh, in quite favorable terms. That he was you know he took some pretty notable stands during the hate strikes in the factories during the war, when the black workers were added to jobs, some of them working alongside of white workers, causing strikes, particularly within the Packard family faculty. And factory, sorry, I've been talking so fast and so long, maybe, that I'm starting to become hoarse. Uh, so Thomas, was, not a strong, not somebody that was going to give you a particularly good speech or present a dynamic image like Reuther. But had done some practical things, and he's worth giving a pat on the back to Thomas. Thomas was the candidate, and then Phil Murray, the head of the CIO, came out basically supporting Thomas. I love that big guy, was what Murray said during the convention. Um, Murray was going to be escorted to the stage by a committee. Reuther was not on that committee, um, but he made sure that he became part of that escort committee. He joined the line. One of the other leaders in that on that group that was escorting Murray to the stage later said that he could feel Reuther stepping on his ankles and so forth to push himself to the front of the line where he could grab Phil Murphy's arm. He told Murphy during the time, "I am going to run for the presidency," and Murray, geez, Murray, goes and he does not endorse Thomas, but he says he loves that big guy. So Murray's tacit endorsement, gave Thomas a boost. So it was questionable who had the votes to win. So one of the tactics that the Reuther forces did during the voting process was that it was a very abstract, obscure policy. Each union had a vote. The number of votes that they had was determined by the size of their membership. Uh, the votes could be divided into fractional votes. So counting the votes was something that only a few people actually knew what the actual vote count was as the voting was taking place. But then toward the end of the voting, there was one larger union that cast a lot of votes for Reuther, and this was the signal for one of the Reuther followers that had planned this, to get up and they start celebrating. So there's you see the Reuther people starting to celebrate, hoisting Reuther up on their shoulders. At this point, he hadn't actually received enough votes to win the election. But it was determined, it was undetermined at the end whether this was enough to swing the remaining votes, more of the remaining votes over to Reuther, so that eventually he did win the election. Typically, then, for the losing candidate, Thomas, the role that they played was to concede and to take another job somewhere at another level within the CIO itself. In other words, to leave the executive body of the UAW. Thomas was persuaded not to do this. He ran for the vice chair and won. He beat the Ruther candidate for that position. And the Addis forces, the Addis Thomas forces, um, uh, still had a large control within the UAW and intended to oust Ruther at the next election. Uh, at this point, I'm not mentioning Frankenstein. Frankenstein ran for mayor of Detroit and lost. And during the mayoral campaign, he vowed that he would leave the union at that point. So Frankenstein leaves the union. Um, we don't hear much more from Frankenstein at the end. I do try to indicate what happened to him, during the end, and say some nice things about Frankenstein at the end of, somewhere, sending, in his post-union years, what his role was. So one of the ploys that the anti uh, yeah, the anti-Ruther crowd was, Addis was still the secretary treasurer. He's the guy that was issuing the checks, although nominally the president had to sign them. So, one ploy that Ruther used was, I'm not going to sign the checks. I'm not going to sign the payroll checks, for any of the executive council members. Until I see, the books and see, that I see all the checks that are going to be going out of here. So, they tried to shield Ruther from any knowledge of what checks were being cashed and so forth. So that was one point in return. The other thing was that he made a deal with Thomas, that Thomas was going to be given control over, and I'm losing it now. I'm not able to read through, the entire section of the book, and I'm sort of doing some of this from memory. But Thomas had one particular institution within the union that he wanted to control, and Ruther, the agreement was that Thomas would get that, and that Ruther would get control of the educational department. He put Victor in charge of the educational department, and that became crucial. That now, the educational having control of the educational department meant that he was able to, get his message out to, the rank and file more readily than the Addis forces, let's say, could. So, he had control of the educational department. The second thing was that they there was a worker for the farm machinery unions that was wanted to join the UAW, and this was a communist controlled union that would support the candidacy of the Addis delegate candidacy. So if that union were admitted with the voting power that they would be given, then Ruther was sure to lose the next election. So one of Ruther's board members, made the motion that carried that this would be voted on by the whole rank and file. The Addis forces didn't think that this was going to pose an obstacle to them, and so they agreed. So it was subject to a vote by the rank and file. This additional union would become full voting members of the UAW, and would, if that happened, it would end the labor career of, or at least the career of Walter Reuther within the UAW. So Reuther's control of the educational department was essential here to try to stir up the vote against admitting this of the just out organized, the opponents. The opponents thought that, they had the election in the bag. They didn't put the same effort into it that Reuther did. And so they were outvoted. At the next national convention, Ruther retained control of the presidency. Addis was voted out, and most of the board members were part of the Ruther camp. So he gains full control of the UAW at this point. During the next labor agreement was the Treaty of Detroit. And Charlie Wilson, the president of General Motors, as opposed to the chairman of the board of General Motors, who was Sloan at the time. So, the presidency was a guy that was actually running the actual day-to-day operation within the General Motors empire, let's say, of all of their plants nationwide. Whereas the chairman of the board and the board represented the moneyed interests, behind them, and the stockholders' interests, etc. That was typical. They didn't have the title CEO. Wasn't that came about quite a bit later. Typically the officers were the chairman of the board and the president. So the president had some leeway, a lot of leeway at least, to do the labor negotiations. And Wilson came, Wilson was Ruther's debating partner from General Motors during the 500 planes a day debate on national radio. And, and they had respect for one another. Wilson told Ruther, told the audience, that he too was a young man, supported Debs, voted for Debs when Debs ran for president in 1912. So he was a supporter of Debs, and his political life and political career very much the same way as Ruther. Ruther left the Socialist Party to support Governor Phil Murphy in Michigan during Murphy's reelection. Murphy was the governor during the time of the Flint strike, who did not order the Guard to attack the sit-down strikers in the plants. Murphy was, I mentioned Murphy quite a bit in the book. There's a 3-volume set of books by Eric Foner. There's Phil Foner and Eric that have written a lot of books on labor matters. And there's a 3-volume set on Phil Murphy, whose career had took a tremendous change. Started as a judge that supervised the Ossian Sweet murder trial, which we'll talk about in a future episode. Then saw that Sweet got a fair trial. He was the mayor of Detroit during the Depression years, during the Hunger March. He was the governor of Michigan during the battle at Flint. He became the Attorney General of the United States, and started the Civil Rights Division within the Justice Department, and then was nominated to the Supreme Court, where he was one of 2 dissenters against the internment of the Japanese during World War II. He died in the the later 40s, while still being sitting as a justice on the Supreme Court. Phil Murphy was, somebody that, was a praiseworthy person, let's say, in my opinion. So Ruther joined the Democratic Party. He became a force within the Democratic Party in fairly short order, especially after the speech, rebutting Lewis in 1940. where am I going with this? The labor negotiations in 1948, 49, the Treaty of Detroit. Wilson came to him and said, I was looking over, some of your positions during the 46 strike, and I can agree with a lot of the things that you said. They came to a long-term agreement, a 5-year agreement. That essentially all of the agreements were on, pay and working conditions, but gave full control over the assembly line to General Motors, to the foreman on the assembly line. There was no, a labor rep on no roles, let's say, for the labor reps or in determining policy on the assembly line. That would be something that would have to be negotiated, in future contexts, and that never changed during the succession of various contracts. So this was an historic agreement. That was the press that dubbed it the Treaty of Detroit. The Treaty of Detroit lasted only 2 years or so until the Korean War broke out, and the conditions, in the economy changed quite drastically. Ruther broke the treaty, much to the dismay of some of the other, or much to the disapproval, let's say, not necessarily dismay, of other labor leaders like McDonald at Steel. And, so they had to renegotiate parts of the Treaty of Detroit, subsequent to the beginning of the Korean War. During 1952, Eisenhower was elected the new president of the United States. It's with the slogan, "I will go to Korea." It was shortly after he was elected that a truce, was never more than a truce. It's still a truce, was signed between the warring parties in Korea, and in the same year, Phil Murphy, the head of the CIO, died, and so did William Green, the head of the AFL. So Meany became the new head of the AFL, and the CIO. There had to be an election to succeed Phil Murray. One of the candidates was a man by the name of Haywood, who was a Scottish, coal miner, that still had a very heavy Scottish accent, and was difficult for the American ear to understand at times. And he was seen as just a temporary leader to hold the post open for McDonald of Steel. McDonald and Ruther were bitter rivals. But Ruther did not want to see McDonald take over the CIO. McDonald was threatening to leave the CIO at this point. There was new leadership in the AFL, namely Meany. So Ruther ran to become president of the CIO. He won the job. And at one point, after he won the job, McDonald said, at least now maybe we can become friends, or something to that effect." And Ruther said, "At least now we come to understand one another." So he rebuffed McDonald, whatever initiative McDonald was issuing. And Ruther was described accurately as, somebody who had to be the concertmaster or the conductor of any orchestra that he played in. So that was a role, that was useful and important in an organization like the UAW, but in a collection of various organizations like the steelworkers, the auto workers, and all of the other unions within the CIO, that was not such a good idea. He was, he had to be like Phil Murray. Murray was known as Uncle Phil. He knew all the people in the the CIO central office. He was good at getting along with everybody. He was able to smooth out the rough feelings between the various components of the organization. Ruther didn't really have any of these qualities to any degree. And so his time in the CIO was, not particularly, that was not a role suited for him. And he wanted to avert, the steelworkers, McDonald taking over the CIO, probably breaking up the CIO, leaving it to rejoin the AFL. So he merged. He conducted the CIO portion of the merger back with the AFL. Some of his early supporters held a wake at the demise of the CIO, and maybe justifiably so. Ruther was looking at this to be a combined effort where you could go after. There would be no more of turf battles between AFL affiliates and CIO affiliates that were battling each other for control of that particular the bargaining rights in that particular industry. This would be averted, and we could put our effort into organizing some of the other unorganized workers. George Meany wasn't really interested in doing any of that. He was just interested in keeping the AFL as much as possible, the organization that it had always been. It was an old boys group. Meany was a new boy in an old boys group, but the leadership committee of the AFL never really changed very much during Meany's tenure. From 1952 on till the time when he retired months before he died in office. So that was the role of AFL leaders, from Gompers to Green on through Meany. They basically died in office, and the people that were there all along, even when they were retired from their active involvement in whichever particular union, were still members of the executive board. So it was a very gentrified, organization that was partly responsible for the diminished role of labor. So Ruther, merges the CIO with the AFL, takes a subservient role within the new organization. There was supposedly a group maybe that he initially was the head of, or one of his, I think it was not him so much as one of his lieutenants, that was the head of the industrial branch of the AFL. Meany was the president of the AFL, and Meany let it be known that whatever he said was what goes. So there was this. It was really an organization with a lot of internal conflict that wasn't too eager about going out and organizing the unorganized labor workers. That particularly pertained in Meany's case to the Farm Workers Union in the 60s. Okay, so after the renegotiated Treaty of Detroit, Ruther's main aim was to get a guaranteed annual wage, in the plant, because the auto work year was so cyclical that a lot of the workers only put in half a year of work. They were being paid a good salary, but only working for a half a year. This was remarked in one of Roosevelt's, one of Roosevelt's remarks when he was talking to one of the auto workers back in the 30s and asked, how much money do you get? Well, he gave him a dollar amount, which seems paltry in today's money, but it was good money back in the 1930s. And so that's good money. He must be doing well. Said, yeah, but I only get that for half a year. My work year is only about a half a year, so it's not such good money. So the guaranteed annual wage. One of the things that Ruther did in his even in the earlier negotiations, was to tie retirement pay to the Social Security, so that when he got a guaranteed retirement pay from the first union he'd work with for this would be Ford. Whenever he wanted to increase the benefits, he would target Ford. Whenever he wanted to increase pay, he would target General Motors. Ford was now under the control of the grandson, Henry Ford II. And Henry Ford II, unlike his father, who was the practical sociologist, actually had a degree in sociology, during his college education. So he was amenable to a lot of the social progress that Ruther was trying to push. So if you wanted to get increased benefits, you went to Ford. And during the guaranteed annual wage negotiations, which was the next big issue in the next union contract in the mid '50s, was to get again guaranteed annual wage. So Ruther first manipulated the agreements in such a way that the agreement with Ford would run out before the one with General Motors, because he knew he would try to get a more favorable hearing from Ford. He knew that Ford had actually done the homework, that his people had done extensive homework, to illustrate, that how this agreement would be paid for. Does your book have any illustrations? I'm sorry, no, it does not. Those illustrations are the illustrations I mentioned. There's a lot of good illustrations. If you just type in Walter Reuther, Google in Walter Reuther, you'll get a page that goes to various other links, and one of them is a lot of different illustrations. They're part of the National Archives. So in order to get those illustrations, it would cost the publisher additional money to put them in, or it cost me, in other words, additional money, and I did not have that to add. But I threw that out as a place. If you're interested, you can go and see some of these illustrations. I don't have illustrations. So the negotiations with Ford was first to get Ford to be the one that with the negotiation would come up with to get this done. Then during the negotiations with Ford, the guy that he was negotiating with was a guy by the name of John Brophy. And Brophy had been an FBI agent back in the 40s, early 40s, at the beginning of the war years. One of Reuther's staunchest opponents was J. Edgar Hoover, who had bugged Reuther's phone, he bugged King's phone, etc. So he wanted, he wanted to have the Reuther brothers all put into a concentration camp like the Japanese for the course of the war. And Brophy said, this would be disastrous. If you tried to do this, the result in Detroit would be, a revolt in the factories. And he dissuaded Reuther from, putting them into some kind of a confinement like with the Japanese during World War II. So Brophy was, after he left the FBI, was hired by Harry Bennett and Brophy was able to survive Bennett's departure and demise, from the Ford organization after the grandson took over. Um, so Brophy was the negotiator during the strike. So Brophy comes up with a plan that was not much different from the plan that General Motors was offering, and Reuther rejected it. Said that I don't know how you're going to. Well, no, he rejected it. And Brophy was arguing that this plan was very popular within the plants, that this would be up, the rank and file would approve this plan, overwhelmingly. So Reuther went back to his board, said, I'm not going to break off the negotiations. I'm not going to call the strike right now. Let me go back and talk to Brophy again. So Brophy went on and said, "Hey, John, this plan that you were discussing, you said it's really popular with the rank and file." Yeah, yeah. And, he's egging Brophy on. And so finally, well, what do you say we put it to that vote? Well, then Brophy starts backing away and, starts negotiating in seriousness. And Ford had a response ready. Ford had done the homework, knew what the union was going to be trying to get, and, had something that both sides could negotiate about and come to an agreement. So Reuther reaches an agreement on that it was not necessarily a guaranteed annual wage, but it ensured that the auto workers would get up to, something like 70% initially, and a figure that advanced in later negotiations of their annual salary, even when they weren't working. Agreement with Ford. And the next step was General Motors. So he took it to General Motors, and General Motors was trying to save the same. Do you have plans to have it out in a different format? Audiobooks, I'm told that I've been contacted by audiobooks, and the cost of doing that to me would be prohibitive. That would be something you would need a publisher, have a publisher support, a regular publisher, not a self-publishing contract with. So no, I'm not going to have it performed as an audiobook. However, it is available as an ebook, which I urge readers to get, because for no other reason than it's more profitable to me. I get more of a commission on selling an ebook than I do on selling a regular book, and I'm at the stage where I can only read ebooks, where I can enlarge the size of the print, to fit my vision problems. I know I love the regular books too, where you can hold it in your hand and you can take it to the toilet or wherever else you might want to sit for a minute and read it. You can write notes in the inside on the pages or in the dust jacket, and it's great to have a regular book. But it is available in ebook form too, from all the usual sources. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple, etc. Okay, so he takes he rejects out of hand, the General Motors plan. It tells them, how do you expect to build General Motors cars on the Ford assembly line? And so General Motors has to come back. They've done no real preparation for them by themselves. They had anticipated that they were going to roll over the union and failed. And so they had to basically accept, the Ford plan. And, one of the negotiators told them this is the first time General Motors ever accepted a plan, on the say so of what of Ford's research. So he got the plan from General Motors as well. And that, the later contracts really built upon this plan. The initial contracts that provided for a retirement income were scaled to, the amount of income they got from people got from Social Security. So essentially, it was such and such a percentage above their salary that they would get. However, the auto workers, the auto companies would only have to pay, let's say, if it was like a hundred, if it was to be a figure that was 125% of what Social Security was, the auto companies only had to pay the additional amount above Social Security to come to that amount. So it became in the auto companies' interest to keep increasing the cost of Social Security. So every cost of living increase in Social Security meant that the that they had to pay for themselves less money into the retirement fund. So now the unions had an ally in going before Congress to to get cost of living increases in Social Security. So it's that time when Social Security became more of a with the cost of living increases, became more of a livable wage for retired individuals, no matter whether they were auto workers or what have you. So that was one of the side benefits from the retirement fund agreements with the unions. The other thing that was impressed upon the workers, the rank and file, was that this agreement, had to be economically feasible. The agreements that the first union that went for retirement benefits were the coal miners from the coal companies, and when the coal companies hit hard times, a lot of those agreements dried up or were greatly reduced. So Ruther insisted on, is it economically viable? Is it an economically feasible plan? So that became a watchword, even though a lot of the individuals that were spouting it didn't really even know exactly what that meant. But that was, one of the planks in the whatever retirement benefits packages. So there we have it. The later contracts more or less build upon the earlier agreement, namely in the area of the annual wage, what fraction of the pay that they were going to get. There was always an attempt by Ruther to spread out, how the how the workload was distributed. The different activities in the workload were distributed over the course of the year between the introduction of a new model and year and the preparation for preparing the machinery, etc., to build that. At the end of the war, when the auto unions, the auto industry was arguing that it was not possible to to use their machinery for building other than the auto other than the parts that they were built for producing the automobiles. It turned out that they actually converted about 85% of their machinery to produce war material, not the planes, but the tanks and other war material, for the war effort. At the end of the war, the people favorable to Ruther were able to say, well, he was at least 85% right when the auto industry, said that it was impossible to convert their machinery for war production. So this was the end of the chapter One of the other parts of the chapter, though, were the assassination attempts. I've talked about them, several times. The first one was a bungled effort by, might have been Harry Bennett was partially behind it at Ford, but other, unions that, were more aligned, other union or other industry officials that were more or less aligned with Harry Bennett, put out this contract maybe on Ruther. And there was these two individuals that came to take Ruther for a ride. And it happened, luckily for Ruther and for what transpired later, was that they were celebrating Victor Ruther's wife's birthday party over at Ruther's house at the time. And so there were a lot of other guests there, other than just Ruther himself. Ruther, when they answered the door, thought it was a food delivery man that they were expecting, and it was these people trying to come in and take him for a ride. One of the guests was able to jump out of a window. Those houses, I can remember living in a house similar to that when I was young and trying to. I can remember not wanting to go to bed at the hour that my parents had put me in. It was summer. The sun was still up. It was still light, and I was able to climb out of a window and get down. But it was no easy jump. So these older Victorian style houses, were no small jump to get out of. But one of the guests, jumped out of this window and went out, alerting the neighborhood, crying out, what was happening, and having the neighborhood, people in the neighborhood call the police, etc. Sophie Ruther, Victor's wife, threw a vase or a lamp at one of the attackers, and finally they were surprised and didn't know how to react and just left. That was they tried to pass that off later, that this was not a real assassination attempt. It was a gimmick that Ruther had staged, to gain publicity, which it wasn't. But it wasn't properly investigated, and the people behind it were never really investigated. The second one was the one after he had become president of the union that almost took his life. That he happened to go in. He came home late from work. He happened to go in via the side door instead of the usual door that he entered, which saved his life at that point. He then was at the refrigerator getting something, getting his meal, getting something out of the refrigerator, and he turned to say something to his wife, and that's when the shotgun blast went off. So it hit him in the arm. It was thought he would lose all emotion within that arm, and he went through a very difficult rehabilitation and so forth. During this period, it informed a lot of his views on healthcare, which was another topic we'll take up a bit later on. And he was able to regain use of the arm. It was predicted he wouldn't. So that was the second attempt, and the third attempt was a bomb in a package in a box. Was left outside the Union headquarters while he was inside. It was near Christmas time, and luckily it was a rainy night, and the fuse, for whatever reason, the fuse did not go off. It did not explode. If it had, it would have been something that not only blew the side off of the building that Ruther was in, but would have severely damaged some of the other buildings that were in the vicinity. So those were the three main attacks. There was also an assassination attempt on Victor Ruther. They had a dog, sort of a protection, but a family dog. He kept kept getting a couple of calls from the police that if he didn't keep that dog quiet, he was going to have to give it up or he's going to have to be taken away. He finally was given the ultimatum: get rid of the dog, or we're getting complaints from the neighbor. So he did, find a home where he could give away the family dog. What the dog was barking at was there was activity outside of his house. He noticed a suspicious car at one point, sort of that was there, and when noticed, he sort of moved away. He didn't pay enough attention. After they gave away the dog, he was sitting in his living room, and a shotgun blast went off, and he lost his right eye in that blast. So he was severely wounded. He was lucky to survive. The police lieutenant that was investigating his attempt was actually somebody that not indirect, but was the owner of a restaurant under someone else's name that was in the area of where the attack was actually planned. So this guy kept turning up wrong leads and solving the case, and was probably involved in doing in helping facilitate, let's say, the people that planned and did this disease, and more about who they were, and this in the book. The attack that was almost successful on Walter Reuther, the FBI was reluctant to investigate. There was a very racist comment by J. Edgar Hoover about not getting some. He used the N-word. Woman is raped, and but Reuther was a power within the Democratic Party. He had allies in Congress, so the FBI was forced to enter this investigation, and they did nothing really to advance it. They were pointing to this or that communist in Mexico, or the first people to absolve themselves of any part of this effort was Addis and other members of his caucus. Had nothing to do with it. They had nothing to do with it. Authorities with strict alibis, I guess, verifiable alibi, had nothing to do with it. So it wasn't a retribution within the Union. It wasn't, some communist plot, coming out of Mexico or, some other place. The UAW, Reuther and the UAW did hire their own detectives, and they did find where this plot originated. The group of people that it originated with, and they even had somebody that was, I believe, the driver, on this case, that was going to testify, presumably. And he was being guarded in a hotel room, to testify, to get leniency for himself. And he had been living in Canada before coming to Detroit to testify in this trial that was this would-be trial. And so he was in a hotel room. He had a police guard. He went into the bathroom to take a shower. The police were playing gin rummy or playing some card game, while he was in there. And then suddenly it dawned on him, this guy's taking an awful long time, in the shower. The water was still running. So eventually they go in and check to see what's wrong, and he's not there. The window was open. He managed to escape, and by the time that they knew he was gone, he was back in Canada. And ended up trying to sue the UAW and the Reuthers for a false accusation and slandering his name, etc. So that was how that particular investigation was handled. Nothing ever came of it. So that takes us through the chapter on the Treaty of Detroit. I see that I have a time of something like 1.35 minutes. I'm always at a loss to determine, where's my thought? To determine whether that's, I've run over for over a minute and a half, or I have a minute and a half to go. So in the remaining minute and a half, let me throw the floor open to questions. I have a sample, some writing samples, that are little vignettes. The writing samples that I have there and I'm going to be adding to would be more reflective of my writing style. Not so much, information, that I'm taking from other sources and putting into my text, but for when I think about the situation, no, this would be talking more about my reflections. It's not the reflections of any other authors. So that was my reflections on the one I posted yesterday about the conflicts within Ruther at his young age. The next one would be on the death of Henry Ford. And I have a couple more that I'd be adding post that. Also, I have some samples of my poetry. I will be adding a couple more to that, and somewhat of some of the poetry, the different style, etc. That I would be writing. So that's what I'm trying to do with that. So I urge you, if you're interested, to go and read that. That's reflective of one of the questions that was asked, during this time. I have on the YouTube link. There are copies of some of the previous sessions, going through this book in sort of not necessarily chapter by chapter, but segment by segment through it. In the next segment, I talk about the Cold War and maybe the Vietnam attack and the Vietnam War, as part of that, and then come back to civil rights, in the next one. So if there are any other questions, this is a good time to ask them. If we're still live. I'm not sure if we're still live or not. I may or may not have exceeded my time that I was using to keep track of the time. So if there are no other questions, I have nothing much more to add at this point. I just want to thank you for attending. I'm going to be on the line again tomorrow, I believe at either 1 or 2 o'clock. I have a live session scheduled, tomorrow and some after that. So anybody that's interested in continuing with this, or anybody that's new that might want to come, that's the next session. Thank you for attending, and thank you.